Many of you have seen the new short documentary, The Girl Inside, by One Girl Revolution in partnership with Behold. It's only 10 minutes. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's right here on YouTube. If you have seen it, please watch it again and please share it with everyone that you know. We need your help. We need your support to share this story and get it out there because we believe that these voices, these women's voices and their stories need to be heard by the world. But one thing you might not know is the behind the scenes story of how The Girl Inside happened, the story behind Dr. Laura Biagi and her students, and so much more. So I actually sat down with Dr. Laura Biagi on Instagram Live, and we told all the stories behind the scenes, what happened, how this project came about, more about the day of, what happened, some of the stories from the students, Dr. Laura Biagi's story. She's incredible, and I can't wait for you to get to know more about her incredible work, and her students. So please check it out. Without further ado, here is our Instagram Live with Dr. Laura Biagi about The Girl Inside. Yay! I feel like this has been such a long time in the making, and I'm happy that it's here.
Me too.
I wish we could be in person having this which hopefully at some point.
Yes. Next year.
Next year, right?
That'd be great.
2021, which I feel like everybody's just like waiting for 2020. Well, we're just waiting for 2020 to be over.
Yeah, it's quite a time, isn't it? It's quite a time.
It's so crazy. Yeah. So for people that are just tuning in, you're currently in Italy.
Yes.
You're in Chicago for so long.
Buonasera. Buonasera a tutti.
How are things over there?
They're good. It's we have to be mindful. You know, there's a mandatory mask wearing outside, but not everybody's wearing it. And the businesses are open. There's some restrictions, but we're, I don't know. It's interesting. Now with the fall coming, we don't know what's going to happen really with people getting sick from regular flu. As soon as someone gets sick here, you have to immediately get a test. And if you're in school, you have to stay home until you get the results of the test. So it's complicating things, but it's what it is. But it's not, the numbers are not rising yet. So that's hopeful, I think,
Yeah.
How about there? How's Detroit?
Detroit's great. I think the most difficult thing, I was talking to a couple of people earlier, and it's like the most difficult thing is every state is different. So every state is treating it a little bit different. So if like for people that have family members in different places, Michigan might be different from Illinois, for instance, or Pennsylvania. So I think, everybody's just trying their best and trying to take care of one another. I think that's been the most beautiful thing for me, is to see how it's really kind of reminded all of us that we're all the same, and just getting people to recognize the people around them, and to see people in a way that they hadn't seen them before, even if they're just like in the coffee line, or, we don't see each other's faces. We're all wearing masks, but
that's true.
Just to see the humanity of people. And that goes right into, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is The Girl Inside.
Yay.
But anyways, I just think that we're all in this together, and I think everybody's just trying to do the best that they can. So, yeah. But hopefully, I feel like we're all just ready for 2021. So I'm just like, all right. I just feel like every day you turn on the news or something, and like something else crazy happened that you're like, no way, like I can't believe that. So
yeah, you also have an interesting November month waiting for you all.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a long couple of months, to be honest, before 2021, especially.
Yeah.
But well, Dr. Biagi, I'm so excited to do this with you, and I'm so
wow.
I think that there's just so much that I want to talk to you about, and I know so many people that watched the documentary, they had so many questions about you and who you are. Of course, like they had questions about your former students. But I really want to use this time to talk about your own story. And of course, like I want to talk about The Girl Inside, and I figured we could share a little bit about, you know, how we met and then how the Girl Inside actually happened, because it was a whole, for people that are watching that don't know the whole background, it was 2 years in the making. And there were so
Yes.
many hoops to be jumped through and so many different people involved that made it all possible. So I want to, of course, talk about that and pay homage to all those amazing people who made it happen. But I guess we'll just start with like how we first met, and then I want to talk about your story. But I pretty much cold called you and reached out to you and was like, hey, I have this project, One Girl Revolution, and you were so generous with your time and said, oh, come by DePaul, because you were teaching at DePaul at the time. And we sat down and just started
Yeah.
like brainstorming and talking about like, would this even be a possibility? And that was like over almost 2 years ago, truly.
Yeah.
So it's crazy
Yeah.
to see that
Yeah.
it was such a long process. But what did you think when I first reached out to you? Were you just like, who's this crazy girl?
No, because I'm also a little crazy, so I wasn't surprised to be attracting another woman who's just interested in something really challenging but meaningful. So I mean that's what I thought. Um, of course, it's such a blessing when anybody wants to document something that you really believe in, and particularly in the context of women and femme and women who don't have a voice, women identifying people who don't have a voice. So that was really, I was very excited about it. Also, because when I teach, I never document anything because I'm so immersed in teaching that I very rare, well, up until now. Now you have set up, you set up a standard for me, like that. But I very rarely think about, oh, let's document, particularly inside a correctional facility. That never crossed my mind, somehow. So I was very excited about it, and I knew that the women, they had told me that somebody had gone that quarter when you came to me and we met, that someone was doing something inside with documenting. So I was like, oh, this is good timing. Perhaps there's a precedent there that we can use. But it was really a faint idea, and I just knew how hard it was to get inside, that particular institution, even just with students and a couple of pens and books. So I was like, I don't know, but why not? So that's what I thought. I was like, yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna be able to do it myself, that's for sure. So when you said let's do it together, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we
Yeah.
did it. We
And
did
it
it.
was such a long process and so many conversations. And even I'm sure, with your teaching, you already knew all the different parameters. And I mean, for us to get pens in, it was this whole long
Yeah.
process and pieces
Hmm.
of paper. We had to count all the different pieces of paper. But it took us
Hmm.
nearly 9 months to get clearance
Yeah.
to take the film crew in. And then that was only the beginning, because once we finally got clearance, then it was like all of the scheduling stuff, and then Cook County had to go through and talk to some of your former students to see who would be interested in coming on and being a part of it. But I just think looking back, it's like it couldn't have been. We just kept following the little steps one by one, and just we knew that there was something there, and we knew that there just was so much possibility. And I think that that's a possibility is such a powerful word. And you and I just connected so much about storytelling, because I think both of us we recognize the power of storytelling and the power of our own individual stories, but
Yes.
also the power of stories that are often untold. So I just,
Yes.
it couldn't have been more perfect. But I want to talk more about that, but I'd love to know a little bit more about your story. I know some because we've had so many conversations, but for people that don't know you and your story, I'd love for you to tell just a little bit about your growing up and how you got into education.
Yeah, sure. um, I was very blessed because I come from a family, both my parents were unable to get an education because they grew up during World War II. And somehow they were not able at that time to get, barely finishing elementary school, but that didn't stop them from, of course, creating a life that they wanted to create, but through a lot of struggles. And so they instilled in me and in my sister a pleasure for education, and like almost like a duty somehow, to, not a duty, a responsibility of gaining access wherever possible. And so I was always very thirsty for knowledge since I was a little girl, and I remember when I was very little, I used to find answers in nature. I would really observe nature and try to absorb everything I could from nature. But as soon as I got into elementary school, I immediately I devoured books and I just wanted to know so much because I am very curious and I'm very multisensorially curious. So I need to know a lot. And so, just to make this not the whole hour because I'm very passionate about education. But
We do a whole series. We do a whole series.
yeah, yes, okay. Um, yeah, I started studying as soon as I could, and I realized what kind of a tool education is, and I became enamored with foreign languages as soon as I was able to travel. There's something about languages that and storytelling in that matter, in that way that I was really curious, like how do people communicate similar concepts in different languages? And that also involved body language and other forms of non-verbal language. So I studied foreign languages and literatures and then was able to get grants to come to the US when I was in my early 20s and did my graduate studies at NYU in performance studies. So I was passionate about how we perform our identity, what makes us who we say we are, and if we strip away the qualities of that identity, I'm Italian, I'm a woman or a female identifying, woman identifying, age, class, all of these things, what remains? It was kind of a spiritual question, but it went through the geography and what constitutes a social identity. But the question of who I am when everything else fails or drops or is taken away is what then led me to study spiritual traditions around the world and yoga in particular, which I studied in India at Ananda Ashram, a very traditional ashram in the south of India. So then when I came back to the US in 2012, I began to bring contemplative practices into academia, which is something that was already there. There were organizations there that did that already, like the Association for Contemplative Mind in Higher Education is where I was given an example that this is possible and this is done in the US. And the US in this sense is kind of like at the forefront of bringing contemplative practices into academic training, which I think is extraordinary and very needed. And so my first then experience in a jail was in New York when I was teaching at Vassar College. A faculty friend of mine who was taking my yoga classes at the college said, "Would you like to teach a yoga class at Dutchess County Jail here?" And I was like, "Sure." It's like, yes. And that was it. And then I came to Chicago, to DePaul, and one of the things that I told them I wanted to do, one of the activities I wanted to do was to create a course to teach inside correctional facilities, which then led me to train with the Inside Out Prison Exchange program, and then was able to create and teach the first class at the theater school inside. And so that's like how it all happened, like
That's incredible.
8 minutes.
Well, no, there's so much. I know we could go into this and like do a whole, like I said, a whole series on it, but there's so many different facets. People sometimes see a little glimpse into something and then they're like, oh, but it makes you want to know more and learn more. But for people that are watching, your program that you were teaching at Cook County Jail was a part of the Inside Out Prison Exchange program. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in that and a little bit more about that, how you found out about it, and then how you got trained to end up going and teach?
Totally, yes. So when I was teaching at Dutchess County in New York, I went in as a guest, first of all, and also as part of as an individual. I went in as an individual who wanted to volunteer some time and skills to the betterment of the educational system inside. But then when I came to DePaul, when I went to DePaul in the theater school, I spoke with the dean of the theater school and I said, listen, I would love to create something. Do you do any of this type of work? And he said, no, we don't, but there is a center at DePaul, the Staines Center, that works with community engagement and community pedagogy. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it's called service learning, broadly speaking. And so I was put in touch with Helen Damon Moore, who was my direct contact with Inside Out. She is the assistant director of that center, and also she manages the relationships between faculty and the organizations there in local. So she said, yes, we do have a program like that, and we would love for the theater school to create and offer something. And there's a training starting next month, and we're kind of late with the application, but would you like me to press? And I was like, yes, I should definitely press. And so I don't know how she did it. She really worked really hard to get me in the training. I had the prerequisites, of course, but the Inside Out Prison Exchange Program works with academic institutions. And so any faculty who's interested can apply to train. The trainings happen throughout the year around the United States. The training itself, the program itself, started out of Temple University in Philadelphia, excuse me. And so yes, that's how it happened. We applied, I got in the training, and then I trained for a week in Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia. And then the training was partially training outside of Philadelphia in a retreat center, and partially was a training inside a state prison, a maximum security prison, Great Ford. And so it was life changing how it happened, because I went inside with the other trainees, and Lori Pompa is the director and person who started the whole program. She had trained students inside who were inside the prison. The Inside Out Prison Exchange Program calls the inmates inside students. So I will refer to them as inside students from now on. But some of the inside students were in the prisons to start with. Then they trained with Lori, and now they are instructors and published authors and community leaders outside. So it was really, I learned from them. And it was just so moving and so, I don't know, mind blowing and life changing. And when I came back, I was like, yeah, we're just gonna do it. And so Helen helped me and put me in touch with Cook County Jail, or CCDOC, the correctional facility in Chicago that we collaborated with. And I don't know, things just started to happen, and they were very excited about bringing contemplative practices with theater together, because there has been work done with storytelling and yoga and contemplative work, meditation. It has already been done for a few years. And so they were excited to have an academic course that involved self-awareness, self-improvement, mental health, and practices like that, So it's just been amazing. It's just been amazing. Yeah.
Well, and there's so many programs. I think it's so good for people to know about Inside Out, because I know there are professors that we've even had reach out since the documentary came out to say, I want to be involved. How do I do this? And I think particularly the work that you've done, and you talk about it in the documentary, we have to quiet the voices inside. And June is another person that I interviewed who teaches mindfulness in Cook County, and like she does incredible work. And I just remember her talking. Both of you really have shared so many similar things, where it's like all of us, if we can quiet ourselves, how different our lives would look and how we live our lives would look so different. And so I think it's important for people to think about that. And like from a human perspective, we often don't hear about the incarcerated population. It's a forgotten about population. And so for us to see them as human beings, just like all of us, there's so many similarities, and I think that's the world today, is we're all similar, and we're seeing that with COVID, how we're all kind of in the same place where it's like, how can we support one another, how can we work with one another, and there are of course so many other conversations that you can have about, like, even when the inside students get outside, we need to have more programs that are actually like employing them, or training programs. And one thing that I learned so much through this whole project and this whole process is how education, even one class, can lower the recidivism rate. So people ending back up in jail or prison by 43%, but sometimes it can be up to 60 or 80%. And so it's so much the power of education. And so I know you don't even know the power that your class has had. I know we got a little glimpse when we were inside for the Girl Inside that day. We saw the power of the course that you taught, and these women, like, it just changed their lives. So I think it's really important for people to see that and know that these sort of resources are available. And all of us, have different things that we're involved in, and different missions in life, I guess. But if you are an educator, that you should reach out to Inside Out and see what you can do to be a part of it.
Yes, I would agree. And it's really, it's a wonderful training. It's a training that prepares you well. So there's no, you know, you're really trained well, and there's a set of exercises and a specific pedagogy that goes with this type of work that works really well with storytelling. So, for example, the classes are held in a circle, and there's a particular dress code for the outside students who come in. There's do's and don'ts. And there's also the motive, right? It's like, you definitely, why do you want to teach? Why do you want to take a class inside? So making sure that the motive is not morbid, because unfortunately there's a lot going on with that, and making sure that you're just in love with education. Because I mean, in my case, I don't know about others, but that's certainly something that I resonated with Lori, is that I certainly, I'm in love with education, because I have been always so eager to learn, and I've always been so eager to figure out why sometimes I mute myself, or I don't express myself. What is it about self-hate or self-harm that has prevented me, despite my access, to not reach out for the best that I could achieve? And so that's why I teach, no matter where I teach. And so to be able to do that in different locations, for me, is gold, is pure gold. And then adding to the fact that DePaul has the possibility to also offer credits, college credits, to the students, of course outside, but also to the students inside taking these classes, is really remarkable.
Yeah.
Because having college credits as part of your file when you are incarcerated is definitely helpful. And on top of everything, however, I want to say, from my point of view, is just that I love to teach. And so if I can teach and reach out to as many people as possible, I will do that. And so that was my motive. Is like, I really want to teach. And so if I can teach in a hospital, I will. If I can teach in a senior home, I will. And I have. If I can, I want to be able to share my passion, as an educator. So, and then there are all the other reasons, like you said, the statistics, and the fact that theater is so much fun,
Right.
right? And we can all use a little bit of fun, for sure. So, sorry, there's a phone going on.
That's okay.
Okay.
Life happens.
Yeah, life happens, yes, and I'm currently living with my parents here, so it's their life happens too. Yeah,
Right.
so.
Well, and I just think, like, and anybody who watches The Girl Inside, they can see that, like, how these women just came alive. Like, when they walked back into that room, I think all of us, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but, like, all of us, we didn't really know what to expect. And I think that's probably everyone, whether it's educators who are teaching, or some of the outside students that are going inside that you were working with. There's kind of this, we see stuff on TV. I feel like Orange is the New Black. Like, people are fascinated on the one hand about, like, prison and crime shows and jail and all these things, but I think it's just so important for us to do these programs. And even I think the training that Inside Out presents it's very real. It's like, okay, this
Yes.
is what's happening. This is what you can expect. And on the one hand, life happens. You never know what to expect, but to know that these sort of programs can prepare people if they really feel, if they feel like they have a passion for it. And if you're
Yes.
already an educator, it's like, imagine the power that you could have with this class, just to give them an outlet to speak and think and be and figure out who they are, which I think was so much of your course.
Yeah, and I mean that's the work that storytelling does in general, right? Is that, and especially with contemplative practices,
Mm-hmm.
because the questions of the class that I taught, and I taught the same class for 4 years in a row to different students. It's called Storytelling as a Healing Art,
Mm-hmm.
because there's something so powerful about in realizing in realizing what we do with our words, like what we create with our words. I, you know, I think that the creativity, like to be able to play with words, to be able to play with one's body, to be able to gain a sense of self in an environment where individuality is not welcomed, right? And then you don't necessarily have a sense of what time it is or the geography of places, because it's not what a jail is about. It's not about having clocks all around, and it's not about seeing a scenery from a window, right? So the creative outlets that humans have through their senses, that are really important for our mental health, are stripped away. And so a class that allows you to explore, that allows you to play, to giggle, and to explore your vulnerability, in a place where it's okay to do that. Actually, you get a good grade if you do that, and like, I think it's really helpful. It's just helpful for humans. And I remember most of the students, particularly the inside students, said that a lot of times they don't necessarily know what to do with the time they have, because it's just, there's only that much reading you're going to do, or there's only, I don't know, every institution, correctional facility is different, of course, but, and I think just to use this powerful mind, to be able to know that, oh my God, I have this amazing mind, and I can use it to create a monologue, to create a scene. And I can remember, oh yes, I'm going to improvise with that other student, who's going to come in, and we're going to do the scene. It's like, oh, it's so exciting, and it makes your soul breathe, not just your body, I think, and I know that for me, like isolation is how we get really sick sometimes, if we, so.
Yeah, and getting people dreaming. Like that's what I loved so much is like this, yeah,
Mhm.
this is getting people imagining things and talking about things and dreaming. And I think even the power for all of us, like if in your dream of dream world, what would you want to be or what would you want to be doing? Or when we
Yes.
talked about when you were little, what's your first memory of play? And I think there's an innocence that all of us had. And I don't even know if innocence is the right word, but it's like this
Mm.
definitely an innocence, but there's also like this power that we had when we
Mm-hmm.
were children to dream and believe that we could do anything, and how sometimes our
Mm.
life just can take a toll on you, and terrible things happen to children and terrible things happen to all of us every single day, where just life can be so hard and it can beat you down, but just have somebody believe in you and help you remember. You and I talked about it so much when we were planning. It's like remembering that girl inside, or that child inside that believed that they could be anything, that they could be president one day, or they could be a country music star, whatever their dreams were. We still can do that. Life is so short, but there also is so much time, if we really utilize
Mm.
it well.
Yes, and I think that one of the hardest aspects of this class is to start with a moment of acceptance of what is, which is also a very important teaching in many spiritual and religious traditions, is that in order to be able to dream, like you said, it's important to know where you are at, and not make peace, because that's a big deal sometimes, to be able to make peace or forgive oneself or others, especially in this context. But at least be a little bit more comfortable with how uncomfortable it is. And because that's a foundation. That's the foundation, right? On which you can build your strength. Because if that isn't there, I mean, I've seen it in myself and in my students, and you can build a lot of castles, but even like practically speaking in the class, it will not, it will not stand as a monologue. If your piece is about dreaming and being up in the air, and so it's a form of escapism, it's not going to be a good piece of theater. It's just not going to be good. And people are going to feel it, and they're going to, I mean, it's going to be cute. It's going to be, whatever, but it's not going to be good. Because the feeling of the presence in one's body, in one's story, whether the performer decides to tell the actual story or to create an alternative to life events, doesn't matter. What matters is this grounding in accepting the self, even just a little bit, not even fully, because I don't know many people who accept themselves fully anywhere in the world, actually. Honestly, we all have a lot to work on, but so I think that that's really important. Is like, okay, this is me, this is who I am, this is my breath, this is my body. What
Right.
do I do with this? What can I do with this?
Mhm.
And then that's the work of the educator. Is like, well, you could do this and you could do this, and then there's that option. That's where the course material comes in, of course. It's like choosing a course material that is relevant is everything, pretty much. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to even like the reality, that all of us live in. Like you can want to be a country music star, but if you don't have a good singing voice, like you're probably not going to be that. So it's like living in the reality, but also being able to dream and having someone believe in you and believe with you and also like help you navigate those realities too. But I want to ask you about the class. So you mentioned storytelling is a healing art. How did you come up with that? How did you curate that? And then tell me more about it, because I know we talked a little bit about you bringing some students from the outside inside with you. How did it work? Because people got a glimpse when we went back, you were reuniting with
right.
some of your former students. So they saw some elements of it, but tell me more about the class.
Sure. So what we see in the documentary is a little bit exceptional, because generally during the class, any inside out class that is taught during the academic year or academic quarter or semester, we have generally about 12 outside students. Those are the students who are currently enrolled in a class, and then 12 inside students, who are the students inside a particular correctional facility. And generally, these are the numbers. The classes are, I don't think that the classes are much bigger. This is what we're trained to do, to not have more than 12 and 12, so that any class can be manageable and can be cared for. So, so the students, go through a selection, both inside and outside. There's an interview process with questionnaires that are provided by the Inside Out program, and also can be modified according to the particular topic that is taught, obviously. But we generally try to get students who either want to pursue this kind of educational track as a career, or who have had experience before working with the correctional system in a form or another. So we want to make sure that the students, just the same way that the faculty has to be clear why they're going in, and they're not going in to save or to preach or to, you know, I don't know, be a voyeur or anything of that, has to be completely taken away. The same is true for the students. And it's a responsibility of the instructor for the outside students to make sure that the students have emotional maturity, that they can handle an environment that may not be familiar, that they can handle an environment where they surrender to me as the instructor and to the um, whoever is inside, the staff member who is inside, to say, oh, we got to pick up and leave right away. So there's a type of behavior that is definitely not the same behavior you have when you're in your college or, your university at home or wherever you are. So there's a training there that happens. And then for the inside students, there's also a screening process, because these are academic programs, and so the students need to have a high school diploma so that they can truly enjoy the fact that they will get college credits. And so also they need to show a real passion for education, because it's important to come to class, not to necessarily escape from the tier only, but also because you really want to learn, because you really are eager to use education to make a difference in your own life and ultimately in the life of any person you meet. So both for inside and outside, it's just, a preparation in that way. So the faculty bring the students inside every week for the duration of the quarter. So it's a regular class. And we have a regular syllabus. Everything is, it's an academic course like any other academic course. So we do that, and we have assignments, we have readings, we have midterm papers, final papers. And then in my case, because I have theater as a focus, we also had a performance at the end. So in my case, I design a class that is experiential as well as intellectual. So I'll give you some examples. I'll bring in the script of a TED Talk, for example, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, The Danger of a Single Story is a TED Talk that I love, and I love Adichie, so I want to speak it out loud. But any sort of material that the inside students have access to, right? So as a faculty, you have to be very mindful of the fact that an outside student may have an internet connection, the inside students don't. So you prepare things ahead of time. And so I did TED Talks, articles, essays, things that I took from books, and that were all previously approved by the university as well as by the correctional institution, by the jail. And then we come inside, and every week we meet, and it's a regular class. So some professors who teach other topics, they may do more of a lecture style. Even though we're not encouraged to do necessarily lectures all the time, we are encouraged to allow the inside and outside students to mingle in projects, activities. So there's that in Inside Out, that we want the inside and outside students to constantly dialogue, mingle, do activities together. And so for the theater class that I taught, these were improvisations that we did, vocal improvisations like we see in the documentary, writing prompts, so writing, also understanding how the language we speak creates the reality we perceive. So if you have a language that has present, future, and past tense in verbs, you will understand reality in your life as something that happened in the past, in the present, and in the future. This is only because of the language you speak. Mm-hmm. Some of the languages around the world don't have future and past tenses. They only have the present. So imagine what that would do to your sensibility. Right. And so we talk about things like this. It's like, what language do you speak? What dialect do you speak? What is your accent? What is this? What is that? And then we talk about things in language that are potentially discriminatory, like gender pronouns or specific, the N-word or other words, that are used and that have historical weight, right? And so we talk about those and how to use those and who gets to use these. And because whatever we do in theater that has a text brings with it all of this, right? And then the other parts are the experiential ones that are body, breath, and voice based. So how do you move your body? Are you ashamed in moving the body? Or are you totally restless all the time? And can you be still on a chair for 10 minutes? And what does that mean inside a jail? To ask somebody to be still or to move around or to say, ha, when generally that's you get in trouble for doing that, you know. So yeah, I can go on and on
Yeah, no,
forever.
I just learned so much from you, from all of our conversations, and it challenged the way that I even think about my own life and my own self. And that's what I think all of us hope that people get from this as well, is like that it challenges them in the way that they look at the world, the girl inside, that it challenges the way that they look at the world, but also that it challenges the way that they look at themselves, you know, that if we really, and we had a long conversation with the women in that room during that day,
Yes.
talking about if we really believed that we are as unique as our fingerprint, which is true, how differently our lives would look, how differently we would
Mm.
live every single day. And even like some of the women shared, and we can jump into the girl inside because I know there's so many different things. People
Yeah,
have like a
sure.
million different questions about the girl inside, and there were so many things that touched me, and I can't wait to find out what touched you, or like things that were takeaways for you. But a couple of things that really struck me that day was talking that conversation about the fingerprint, and
Mm.
how these women started talking about just sharing, like even being in Cook County, that they were recognizing that they had power to be there for other women and other people just in
Mm-hmm.
general in the jail, and that mattered, you know, that our little interactions with people can sometimes have a massive or lasting effect on how other people view themselves. Or, you know, they're sharing like funny stories about, oh, so and so was struggling or having a rough day, and then we all got together and we were like, girl, you know,
Mm.
girl squad, we're going to take care of one another. And that was just really, that was really beautiful. But another thing too is we talked about the word girl, and I was actually
Mm.
surprised. That was one of the most surprising things for me, because even when I talk about One Girl Revolution, some people have different opinions, and I get it. It's fine. Like it's a, you know, people are welcome to their opinions about you know, the use of the word girl. But the thing that struck me the most is when we were sitting in that circle and I was sharing about One Girl Revolution and you were catching up with them, and that was the word that they like latched onto. And then I feel like everything, it just became the girl inside. We didn't even, we had no name for it when we first, but it was like they latched onto that, and it was like, yeah, remembering the child inside of all of us, and that we can do anything, and just kind of seeing that blossom. And I feel like the day just kind of went from there. But I'd love to hear what some of your takeaways or surprises or things that kind of struck you during that day.
Well, um, so that day, it was already November. And so the students, the outside students, were not on campus. And so you and I made the decision to just go inside and meet just the inside students who had volunteered to be in the documentary. So that was already pretty special because it was not like anything I had done before. I mean, the first class is generally a class where I go inside by myself to meet the inside students, but so as soon as the students came in, and I'm so grateful that the great production company of Behold caught that really, and that we decided to put it in, is that moment of reuniting that was so moving. I mean, I was ready, I was moved, but I didn't know that they were gonna pull me up and throw me in the air and stuff because I'm very petite, so that kind of works. But still, I was like, oh my God, they're just like old friends, which just tells you about the power. It's about the power of the work, right? It's about the power of listening to each other, like listening to one another. What that does, that's really very difficult, isn't it? Like to be able to truly listen without reacting or attacking. I see it in every day. Like it's very hard for me, even though I teach this stuff, you know, it's difficult. So when you're able to do it there, then I felt it. I just felt that there was this listening thread, you know, that continued from the last time we saw each other. And that was really just so beautiful. And then I was just, I don't know, even thinking about it gives me goosebumps, you know, all of it. I was moved by everything.
Yeah.
But what you captured in this amazing tribute to everything, you know, that we have talked about is how willing these human beings are and were, and how willing human beings are in general when we feel comfortable with each other to truly express a level of magic that we are, you know, and that's not easy. That's not easy. I mean, when we are girls, when we are boys, or when we are kids in general, it's easier. Well, of course, it depends, but it's easier to be playful, to be loving, to just giggle and roll around the floor like that. But of course, life takes a toll, and it's just outside all the time. People are just not not able. We're just not able to love at that level, you know. So the love, I would say overall, the love in that room was just, and the intimacy was just very interesting. Love and intimacy, and I'm very grateful that the documentary just 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 has that. Is able to convey that, and that's pretty magical to me. So
You're making me choke up. I mean, yeah, it was so powerful, and I think for people that don't know the whole background, like we didn't even know who was going to be in that room. We just knew that they had asked some of your former students. We knew that there were maybe going to be 5 or 6, but we didn't know. And I think
no,
that
we
was
didn't
such a
know.
beautiful. The people that were supposed to be in that room were in that room, and we know that now. I just remember you and I walking out after the hours that we had been in there, and that was a whole amazing thing as well, because we were only supposed to be in there for a specific time, and it just was so beautiful that they just kind of kept letting us stay, and they were like, it's yeah, you guys can keep going. And so then
It's
we were
true.
doing
It's
the music.
incredible.
It's just like all the different hoops that we had to jump through, and then it couldn't have been a more perfect day. It was like cold and rainy and
Yeah.
whatever in Chicago, but I just think that so much magic, like you said, just happened in that room, because there was almost like this I don't know, there's this really beautiful human connection. And I think even the fact that we didn't know who was going to be in the room, we weren't able to plan. We planned as much as we possibly could, but then it just sort of took on a life of its own. And the women were able to direct it as well, you know, because they were sharing different things that we weren't necessarily expecting. But yeah, I just think
Hmm.
it was such a powerful day. And I just remember us walking out and just looking at each other and being like, wow,
That was
wow,
beautiful, yeah.
like
And
wow. And
you
think
know
about that.
what I, you know, in retrospect, the people who decided to be in the room are the students who truly, truly believe in the power of oration, in the power of
Mm-hmm.
speaking up, in the power of teaching, of leading, because all of the women inside had expressed originally a desire to become a preacher, to become a teacher, to be a singer, to be, you know, and I just, I mean, I knew this, but I just thought about it now. Actually, yes, they were the ones who understood, who had signed up for the class because they really wanted their voice to be heard and use the class to get a kickstart, you know, a momentum to just be like, okay, I got this, I can do this, I'm gonna do it, you know. And I think that that's also what I want to say about this type of work and the work you do, Kate, as well, is that one thing that is very important as a teacher for me and as an educator is to remember that we basically, I don't know how to explain now, the metaphor wants to be this, but let's say like I'm cruising, right, I'm sailing on this wave of storytelling, and then I just happened to sail by other people who are like, oh yeah, we're gonna ride together, but they're already sailing in their life path, right? So the idea that the teacher is going to enlighten a student who didn't know, or sometimes it happens, sure, but most of the times with adults especially, it's really about like, oh my God, that's, we want to be on that. We want to be on that, like, you know, cruising situation. And so they latch on, and then we work together, and then we continue and we sail off to whatever destiny we have. But those definitely were the, you know, the women who had a calling, you know, no pun intended with voice and call and calling, but they really had a calling to use their voice to make a difference. And so I'm so glad that they, you know, agreed to be featured, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Me too. And they just were
Yeah.
so beautiful and powerful, and we learned so much from them. And I think anybody that watches The Girl Inside, you can't not be touched by them and their words. And of course, you like there's so much that was said during that time that it just, you can't help but be moved by it. And I think there's also something, we've gotten a couple of questions about people asking, like, I want to know more about the women, like what they did and why were they there. And
Mm,
that was never the point. Like you and I
no,
talked about it. I was like, I don't want to know. And I remember Cook County saying, do you want to know? And we were like, no, we don't want to know. We
no,
don't want to know, because in reality, we've all done things in our past, and that's not to justify anything that anyone has done. All the women that were there, they recognized that there was a reason they were there, but they also recognized that they wanted to be better and they could be better. And I think that's all of us. We all should be striving to be
yes.
better. And in reality, like we're all one step away from Cook County. We're all one step. There are just so many things that have happened in our lives or things that we've done, but to recognize that we have a purpose and we have a value and our voice matters. And so I just think that it was just an incredible experience.
Yeah, and it is a rule of Inside Out not to ask. It is an
Mm-hmm.
actual rule of Inside Out because the faculty, the teacher, and especially the outside students are not going in to be nosy about their private life in that way, and vice versa, actually. But
Yeah.
particularly the educator is there to teach their class, and not to inquire or ask, because it can get very sensationalist very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the point at all of this educational program. So I am glad that you also were very respectful of that, because it was never, and in fact, when we do the work inside with the monologues, there can be some details of what happens in every student's life, but never the specifics,
Mm-hmm.
particularly that regard the case of the reason why somebody's inside. But even for the outside students who have experienced trauma, and this is true of any theater educator, that we have to be so mindful of not abusing the student or the actor or the director in wanting to know more with the idea that speaking up is going to heal them. That's a problem. That's a very traumatic thing that occurs in theater. And I think it's no longer, it's never been necessary, but now more than ever, I think connecting through strength and encouragement is a way better tool for connection and well-being than focusing on the trauma. Then if the person decides that they want to disclose something, then we'll work with that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not a prerequisite. So I think that that's also really what makes, and it's portrayed in the documentary, what makes it so intimate without being ever feeling like, oh my God, I'm being a voyeur of the situation, is that intention was never there. And I think thank you for giving me an opportunity to bring that up,
Yeah.
because that's if the people who are listening are interested in doing this work, this has to be so clear,
Mm-hmm.
because you can go in, and we all make mistakes, and I make so many mistakes as an educator, but at least this prerequisite of knowing that you're not going in because you have some sort of unresolved trauma that you think you're going to resolve by helping others that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a disaster. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Never teach with that anywhere, but
Right.
particularly not in a hospital or a jail, or just
Yeah.
don't. So
It's a good lesson for all of us too. Is like
it's
there's so many,
hard.
we're
Yeah,
all put
it's
into boxes, and that was one thing you and I talked about. Is like we just want the freedom to speak, and we want everybody to feel the freedom to just speak and
yes.
be who they are. And I think that's a lesson that all of us should take in our daily lives, where it's like let's stop putting people in boxes and look at
Yes.
them as a human being and look at them as our fellow humans, and how can we get to know them as a person, not because of the color of their hair or the car they drive or their zip code. I mean, we do it all day long. And so, it's definitely
Yes.
challenged. One Girl Revolution has challenged the way that I think about so many different things, interviewing so many different women from different backgrounds. And Dr. B, I want to ask you, because I know people want to know, what's next for you? I know you're back in Italy. Where can people follow you? Tell me more about that.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for this opportunity, actually. So I'm currently in Italy. I decided to leave the US after many, many years, and also take a break from academic teaching for a minute. I don't know how long this minute is going to be. Not from teaching though, because I love teaching. So I am currently supporting my own yoga acharya, my own teacher, Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Bhavanani, in teaching a yoga teacher training and a yoga training online from India. So I joined him online for that. And I'm also really reassessing. I'm taking a moment. I'm very blessed to be able to take a couple of months of slow activity to understand what's needed next, particularly here, because it's a different cultural context. And what I want to develop right now is my capacity to support myself and others in feeling connected and whole in themselves through these yoga practices, as well as voice coaching and other practices that I also did inside. But I'm currently revisiting this map of Italian culture, Italian language, and who's who and what institution is doing what, because I haven't lived here for many years. And so I'm taking a couple of months now, this is already the end of that couple of months, to assess that before I start offering my own sessions online as a yoga teacher. I particularly work with a branch of yoga called Nada Yoga, which is the yoga of sound. So I work with breath and pronunciation, resonance of the voice, body posture, so things that I used for the course inside. I'm teaching, COVID, it depends on COVID a little bit and what's going on, but I'm going to Milan this week to teach at the Milan Yoga Festival. So I'm excited about that. And so for now, I went from being, a full-time professor in a pretty major university in the US, in a pretty major city in the US, to being an entrepreneur in a very small city in Italy. So, but people can follow me here. They can follow me for sure on Instagram and as well as my website. You can find all of the information on my Instagram page. The Linktree link in the bio has my TED Talk and other things. And people can definitely DM me if they want to know more about Inside Out. Of course, they have you as a reference, but you're welcome to DM me to ask me any questions. And if you're interested in also, if you're an educator and you're interested in getting training, I can offer training and also direct you to other trainees in the US who do similar work. So all of my information is in the bio, and I'm not sure, Kate, what the future brings. I may
Nobody
decide
knows.
to
I know it's a
work.
hard
Well,
question.
that's the thing. I want to work with kids, I think, with children, and see what theater and storytelling and meditation can do with kids, because I think it's important for them to feel seen as well. Because a lot of times children are not heard or seen, a lot of times, because they're just kids. I'm talking like 5, 6 year olds or younger. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted. But now it's a meditative pause. I'm like,
It's good. I think everybody needs it, and I think that it's great that you're taking it. So I hope that everybody will keep following you because you're doing so much. That's the thing.
yes,
So I'll make
thank you.
sure that I tag all of your different accounts so people can, and your website and everything,
Thank you.
they can get in touch, and they can just continue to follow all the different things that you're doing. But I'm just so grateful, Dr. B, that we got
Thank you.
connected. And
Yes.
for everybody who's watching, please watch The Girl Inside. Watch it
Yes.
different
Yes.
times. I know we both watched it so many times, and every time I just feel like I'm touched in a different way by it. But please keep sharing it. I hope that it just continues to grow, and who knows what the future holds for us with regards to The Girl Inside. I think there's a lot of possibilities for where that could go. But I'm just so grateful for everything that you've done, and I'm just grateful to have this time with you. So thank you for being on.
Thank you.
For all the great work you do, and let's do something again soon for One Girl.
Yes, please. Yes. Let's tour it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, everybody. If anybody wants us to come and do a tour, we'll do it. So
yes, we can do a workshop. Yes, on how to teach a class
amazing.
like this, for sure.
That'd be amazing. So We'll see what the
Thank
future
you so
holds, but
much.
I'm so grateful for your time and thank you for being
Thank you.
part of it. And again, everybody, please watch The Girl Inside and share it.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'll
Thank
talk to you
you.
soon. Okay, Dr. V?
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for
All right,
watching.
thank
And
you.
thank you,
Yeah,
Kate.
thanks,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Bye.